To the cloud. We are recording. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for our second cat best practices. We're going to be discussing fear. This is one of the things I definitely resonate with the animals. I myself struggle with anxiety and PTSD, so I kind of can relate and step into the animal's shoes. And I actually have some project animals, as I like to call them. I like to work with the fearful animals. So it's going to be me, Allie Bradley, on this webinar or with you guys, as well as Kellen, and Victoria should be joining us as well. She is definitely a cat whisperer. I love to hear all of her insight. So we're going to be going over what is fear? Let me move this down. What is fear in general? So we're going to be going over the definition of that. We're going to be going over recognizing the signs of fear in shelter cats, what we can do to help. So I'm going to be splitting that kind of into two, what our shelter team does, our shelter behavior team, and what we can do as volunteers to help. Tools that are going to be helpful during your shift, and the importance of good decision making. And then we're going to have a little bit of time at the end for some questions and answers. So please bring all the questions because we want to make sure that we answer them. So we have a responsibility as a whole to the shelter animals to keep them as happy and healthy as possible during their stay at Michigan Humane. So that means physically healthy and mentally healthy as well. Fear. As a noun, it's an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or a threat. So with this being said, it's not necessarily that something has happened to the animal, it's the belief, it's in their mind that something is a threat, right? As a verb is to be afraid of someone or something as likely to be dangerous, painful, or threatening. Again, it hasn't happened. It's as likely to be dangerous. So you haven't shown yourself to be a danger, but they are thinking that you are a danger to them. So I'd like to just take a moment to go through the process that a cat has when they first come into our doors. So just imagine you as a fearful animal. You don't know where you are. You've been brought in to our doors. You've been, you're either shoved in your kennel or you are in one of our tomahawks, right? And being brought into the intake room. It's just like a evaluation room at like how you're at the doctor. And some people have anxieties when they go to the doctor. It's a cold room. There's people in uniforms. There's medicine around you. There's sharp objects around you, right? It's in the form of a needle. You don't know who the person is. They're essentially a stranger. So again, there's going to be strangers involved, staff, volunteers, but we're just talking about the intake process, so we're just going to focus on the staff. During their medical evaluation, they're getting poked and prodded. Of course, we're using our safe animal handling and making sure that we're not trying to overly stress the animal, but they are getting their first rounds of immunization, so they're getting poked. When they get brought back to where they're going to be settled at for the moment in our back cat area or owned or stray hold cats over at Berman, there's all types of neighbors around you, and emotions can be transferred, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, but emotions can be transferred between neighbors, between rooms, right? Even from a human to a cat, if you're carrying some type of emotion, it can be transferred to that animal. And then also their daily cleaning interaction. Each and every one of our cats, they get their kennel cleaned every single day to lower the chance of disease transmission and make sure that they're just healthy, right? So it's not the same staff member every single day. It's different ones. So there's a circulation. And then also while they're back there in their kennels, they have medical evaluation checks as well. So there's also our medical staff coming in and making sure that they're okay. So there's a lot going on. We do have our rest times from 12 to 1, or sorry, from 11 to 12, but it can be rather stressful. So we're going to be going over some cat body language objectives. First, we're going to be talking about the FAS spectrum. What is it and how we use it? We're going to talk about the 4 Fs. I really like these. And then 8 points of observation, and this can be applied to cats and to dogs. So what's the FAS score? What is it? This was crafted by the Free Safe, excuse me, shelters. They made this spectrum, and I think it's really, really cool. It's been really, really great for our dogs. We haven't emulated it or put it into play with our cat behavior team yet, but we do use it as a great way to kind of describe the level of fear or stress that the cat may be exhibiting. We're not going to go ahead and do the yellow and the red and everything, but if you actually look into those the individual paragraphs, excuse me, it really does like a deep dive of what the cat may be experiencing. So that's why I really like this chart. It is a scale that is utilized by behavioral veterinarians to describe what behaviors are that we're seeing in a cat. So it ranges from 0, right here at the bottom, and it goes all the way to red. So usually the green are those like happy cats that want to rub on your leg and just have all the loving and everything. And then on the red end of the spectrum, it usually is fear-induced aggression. So that cat is just so overly stimulated, so fearful that they just feel like they have to either freeze, they have to flight, so they're trying to like get out of dodge, or they feel like they have to fight. And I know everybody knows that old saying, do not approach a cornered cat. That does go into play. So again, Michigan Humane doesn't currently utilize this tool, but it does serve as a great reference for describing what we are seeing in cat interactions. And I will send this over later on so you guys can take more of a deeper dive in looking at these different spectrums here. So the frustration scale. So everyone has a calm, collected baseline. So stress is actually designed for our bodies and bodies of animals to bring you back to that baseline. But sometimes it can go a little bit haywire with repeated exposure to unfamiliar conditions. So example, they were in their home and all of a sudden they're in the shelter. So clanging of the cage doors when people are opening and closing them to get cats out, them cleaning, people walking up and down the hallway, that's all stressors, right? They're triggers. So if they have a repeated exposure to that and it already is stressing them out, that's when things go a little bit haywire. So I'm going to go over the stress definition. Stress is the sum of the body's and mind's reactions to anything that disrupts our normal baseline or state of functioning. The purpose of these reactions is to return the body and mind to their normal states of functioning. So these can be split up into 3 different categories. So we have environmental, which is the shelter, right? And then we have physiologic. So that can be pain. So some of the cats that do come in with us can have an injury. They might have a broken leg. That's going to stress anybody out. That might even cause a fear to happen, right? Like my leg is already injured. What are they going to do? Is they going to hurt me even worse? Hunger. So we do have some cats that come in that are emaciated as well. So that hunger, it messes with everybody, right? I don't know if anybody knows the term hangry, but that definitely comes into play with animals as well. And then also illness. So URI as well. URI, different diseases that come in through the shelter that we try to get a handle on. Panleuk can be a really big stressor as well. Some of our kittens that are under socialized, right? Or they have been taken away from their natural social environment. So cats that are the trap, neuter, and return policy that we have, sometimes they're taken away from their colony, right? Mistakenly, and that's their family. And that's what they're used to doing every single day, right? And they've been taken from that. They've been taken from their social interactions. That can also cause a lot of fear in the animal. And it can be defined in mild, moderate, or severe. So when we see that, an animal is in distress, especially severe and harmful, we will take steps to try to alleviate that stress. And I'll talk a little bit about that later on what we do at the shelter and then what else we can do as volunteers. But animals are susceptible to adopting other stress and fear from others in close proximity. And that's kind of what I talked about earlier. I don't even know if anybody has experienced that with another human being. A person comes in, they're a little bit frantic, and you were calm and relaxed at your baseline, right? And then when they are either right in front of you or when they leave, you feel like some of that kind of has been like sucked out of you, right? So that's called an emotional contagion. That's when animals shift their own emotional state upon perceiving emotions of other animals in the same direction. So a cat that is experiencing fear in a row can actually transfer that to other animals. So let's go on to the next slide. We're going to talk about the 4 Fs. So I really like this because it really explains how how an animal reacts, or even a person, honestly, when we're in fight or flight mode, right? That's what we call it. So fight, the body stiffens, they might get some direct stares, the ears will be forward, you'll have some vocalizations present, so growling, some hissing. I've even heard cats thump their tail or their hands down like rabbits before. I've heard it happen. And then if you are still persistent, a lot of times they will lunge at the front of the cage or swat at the person that's present. For flight, again, body stiffens, there's some facial tension. The eyes are wide, they might be trying to avoid eye contact. Their tail is tucked. They're looking for a retreat. They're looking for a means of escape, right? They just need that couple of inches of that kennel door being open and then they're gone. They hide behind objects in the shoreline or inside of their hide. And then of course they're going to try to escape in any type of given opportunity. And then fret, fidget, so you'll see the lip licking, the looking around and scanning, the pacing, the pawing. I don't really see this too much in the fearful cats. I will say in my personal opinion, I see the fight, flight, or the freeze. And then with the freeze, again, the body stiffens with the facial tension. So as you can see, there's a common reaction with the body and their face. Body stiffens, facial tension. They will freeze and remain in place and may begin to shake. You'll see some trembling happening. The mouth will be tight and appear catatonic. The cat will appear like it's just gone, right? And appear to be sleeping. So in my opinion, I think that freeze is the worst of the 3, between fight, flight, and freeze. Because at that point, the cat has kind of just shut down at that point. It's harder to work with them. A lot of times they've given up their spirit and it's really hard to get them to recover. It's almost like a dog that has gone into kennel decline. We'll try to medicate, we'll use our feel away products in their cages and whatnot. But at that point, a lot of times it's hard to get the cat out of that state of being. 8 key points of observation. This is my favoriteest chart. So when you go and you're evaluating a cat, right? Definitely want to do these things. Look at the overall body posture. And again, we're just going over this. Kellen did this at his last best practices, but I really love this. Overall body posture. Is the cat loose? Is it wanting to engage? Is that hair coat nice and relaxed, or is the back of his tail all high and on alert there? Is the eyes relaxed, or is the cat giving you a direct stare? The ears, are they forward? Are they back? Are they just up at high attention, just being alert? Mouth, is it tight? Is the cat lip licking? The tail, is it nice and loosely around its body, or is it tucked underneath its body trying to protect itself? Is it high and attention and alert? Vocalizing, are we having some chirping sounds? Are we having some hissing or growling sounds, right? When you're right in front of the kennel. And then animal and context. So what's the situation? So with our staff and volunteers. I'm grateful because one, we do get our first look at intake of what the animal is like, but as things progress and people are cleaning the cages or whatnot, and people are socializing, we get more of a broadened spectrum of the animal in context with different situations. So, is the cat avoiding contact? Is it hiding in its hide? If there's not a hide available, is it hiding behind the towel that we draped over one of its over its cages or not? Is it hiding in the litter box? Is it engaging you? So you want to look at these things when you first go and meet a cat. So what does MH do, Michigan Humane, do to help? So for environment, we will provide more hidey spots and a covered door. So with that, each and every cat should have a hide. If they don't have like a hide with a cardboard box or whatnot, we need to place a heavily draped towel over the side of one of its perches. That's what I meant to say earlier. One of its perches needs to have a heavy towel draped over the front so they can hide behind it. And we'll even go as far like right here with the covered door. So what that does is it helps just remove the cat from what's happening on the outside door. Like people can walk back and forth. Yes, they hear it, but the visual stimulation is no longer there. We'll also put a cat in a double cage with a portal. So that gives us more space to roam. Also, sometimes we will place one side of the cage where it's completely secured, where the cat has the covered door, and then the other side will leave open. So that gives the cat free range of whether or not it wants to present itself, or it can go and continue to hide. So we're not trying to encourage or continue a negative stimuli with the cat. We want to go ahead and help reduce that stimuli. We want to make sure that we are trying to get the cat to understand we are not a threat. We're here to help you. We're here to take care of you, right? So we want to make sure that we are continuing to go in that direction and not go against that. Spot cleaning whenever possible. So this is for staff and volunteers. So we don't want to go in there and do a full clean up and down every single one of those shorelines. We want to spot clean. We want to make sure we locate if there's any pee or poop outside the litter box, make sure we document that, because that also happens when cats are very fearful. They will not go in their litter box. We also want to make sure that we are really paying attention to the glass, because a lot of times when cats are fearful or very, very stressed, they end up developing URI symptoms. So we want to make sure that we're not seeing any type of signs of sneezing on the glass. So we want to pay attention to those. Keep food away from their litter. So we try to do that regardless. That's just a healthy practice that we have at the shelter, to keep any type of contaminants away from their food. But sometimes cats are weird and they drag their food next to their litter box because that's where they feel safe at. They'll lay in their litter box because that's their own scent, their own smell, and that's how they're coping with being in the shelter. As we do see things progress and things go in the right direction, a lot of times the cats that start to exhibit those behaviors will begin to stop doing that as they start to calm down a bit. We also utilize medication. It does have to be approved by the veterinarian staff on site, either Berman or Detroit. At Detroit, we do have a cat behavior team, and actually Dr. Watrous over here is actually on it. So it does ease the practice a little bit, but we utilize gabapentin. And that is prescribed to the animals that are experiencing those high levels of stress or fear that cannot be managed independently. Because remember, I talked about earlier that stress is meant to bring us back down to that baseline. Now, if we notice the cat, like it might be a couple days, if that at that point, about 3 days, the cat should be able to return down to their baseline. But if we notice the cat is continuously in that high state of fear or stress, we're going to recommend that we prescribe this medication, and this will just help level them out. And at that point, we'll be able to start to work with them and start to alleviate some of those fearful tendencies and beliefs that we are a threat, because we all know that we're not. We have to make the cat believe that, right? So, Talon, it's on you. What can volunteers do to help fearful cats?
Thanks, Allie. I'm actually going to pass it along to Victoria, who was able to
Oh, she's
join us for
here.
the
Hi,
call.
Victoria.
So, Victoria, go ahead and take it away for us.
Hi, everyone. I'm real excited to be here with all my cat peeps here. This information here is the exciting part, what we get to do interacting with the cats, working with enrichment, and when we get to interact with them directly. And when I go up to enclosures, the first thing I always like to do, of course, they mentioned any cards on the front of the gates trump anything that I'm about to say. We want to make sure we pay attention to the cards, but I like to look at the enclosure and make sure they have that hidey spot. As Allie mentioned, either the towel that gets hanged over, or I like boxes. We've seen them in here. I like the box put this way so that the lip in the front, cats often crouch down to hide, and they'll hide behind the lip. They also will have some hiding spots with the end, and yet they can still peek out when you have boxes that have the holes. And then putting fleece inside makes them feel nice and comfy, but it doesn't always work out to put the box this way. Sometimes we want a smaller cat to be able to get up to that top shelf or the perch. Then we might want to put the box in this orientation. I really like the boxes that have a top also. This box here has, you can tell I'm a Costco fan. I like all these Kirkland boxes. This box not only has a lip in the front that the cat can hide behind, but also has a top area that they can perch on top, or be able to perch on top of this to get to the next shelf. It gives the cats more vertical space to hang out on. Of course, we know each of the enclosures have different sizes, so we want to really be aware that the box is not too big for the enclosure. They want to still be able to get all their other resources inside there, their food, their water. So use your good judgment in all of that. And again, putting fleece inside makes them nice and cuddly. I also like to just take a look to make sure we all get so busy. Sometimes the water might get put up on that top shelf while the enclosure is getting cleaned, and then it gets forgotten to be put down lower. And then the cat, if he's really tiny, can't reach it. So just be aware of all the resources inside the enclosure. And then getting into the enrichment, we want to pay attention to whether or not what we provide as enrichment truly is enriching to the cat. Is the cat coming forward and engaging with the items that we present, or is it fearful? Does the cat back up away and is afraid of the items that we present for them? So some of the enrichments that you see on the slide here, we have the interactive wand toys. We're all familiar with that. There's different types. You can use the feathers on the string. You can use, I like to make out of paper bags. It makes noises so that the cat, it gets them curious. You can just walk up and down in front of the enclosure and make some noise, and the cat will be curious. I make it out of a paper bag. You just take parts of the paper bag, make strips out of it, and then just roll it up, make a nice little toy out of it, and then you can use this to have the cat move around from one area of the enclosure to the other. Even if a cat is, a cat that's overstimulated or an escape artist, you can still have the gate closed and use this. It can go in through the little holes, and you can get the cat to move around, and it'll still be very enriching. And even cats that don't want to engage, maybe they're in the back, when they hear the noise, or they can just kind of look from behind their hidey spot, it's still very enriching to the cat. Other items, we've all seen the braided fleece that we can hang from the enclosure. They like to play with that. Other items we have here, toys of different texture. It's always exciting. There's little balls with the fur. The cat, especially kittens, like to pick it up with their paws and their mouth. And of course, we have the mice. And then when it comes to balls, we want to make sure that it's the cat is not fearful hearing that jingly noise. There are balls that don't have bells in it, so we can pay attention to that. And then sometimes you can find little plastic toys that have rough edges too, that are kind of, some cats find that really enriching. And then, of course, crinkle toys. Again, some cats are afraid of it, so we want to pay attention to their body language and see how they react to the items. Then we have, of course, everybody's favorite lickable treats. Churu, we're all familiar with Churu, but there's another product that's a little bit thicker than Churu that some cat behaviorists like, called Cat It. And we can put this on another item. I really like using a retractable back scratcher. So then if we want to have a cat that wants us to have more distance or a little more fearful of us and we want to have a distance, you can put a little of this on the scratcher and be farther away and still present it to the cat. And then we can still sterilize between animals when we have something, because we don't want to have any infections go from one cat to another. So we want to be careful that enrichment that we present stays with that cat and not go from kennel to kennel. We also, when it comes to lickable treats, something I wanted to present, especially to any of the fosters that are watching, these little syringes that we give their medicine for, especially for fosters, because you'll use the same syringe for every cat. You can suck up some of the lickable treats in here and present it to the cat, and it can not only help them get used to a syringe coming to them, but they'll feel like it's something enjoyable. Some people also will put the medication, they'll pull up some lickable treat, pull up some liquid medication, pull up some more lickable treat. That way when the cat's getting it, it'll be something enjoyable for them. I also like to help cats get used to their nail trimmers. I'll present a nail trimmer for them to touch with their nose or to sniff, and then give them some of the lickable treat or other treats. You kind of have to, we all know, we kind of have to figure out what the cat likes. A lot of cats do like Temptations. Sometimes I will break these up in smaller pieces so that I can have more pieces of reinforcement rewards for the cats. Let's see what else we have on our, so you kind of have to figure out what the cats like. There's little tuna packets you can try. And again, even the tuna packets can be delivered on the retractable back scratcher too. You can put the food on there and give it to them from a distance. And we talked about boxes, bags, hidey spots. You can throw treats inside there for them to discover. Relaxing music. We've talked about that at our quarterly meeting, how we can find different YouTube videos with relaxing music. Through a Cat's Ear is a cat specific music that cats really enjoy. I download mine onto my iPad and I bring a little portable speaker. That way I can just have my phone plugged in and have my speaker in different areas for the cats. And just audiobooks, reading to them. The next thing on my list, touch and stiff, a target stick. I find that this is really great for getting the cat to move around the enclosures, and it's really encouraging for them to have that kind of stimulation. So y'all met Soka last week. When you have the cat, we don't want to stick it right in their face, but we present it a few inches away. Then the cat will come to it and sniff it. And then we give them some kind of enrichment, whether it's chasing a feather, a toy, and they'll go after it. And again, you can present it a little bit farther away and the cat will come to it. And again, give them their enrichment that they can move around their enclosure and feel comfortable in their space. Again, it doesn't have to be a flirty toy. It could be a feather. You could give them a piece of food. But the idea is, as the cat moves around in their space and has mental stimulation, they have to think about, how do I get that treat? Or how do I get to be able to chase that feather toy or that flirty toy? It's brain work for the cats. And I have often worked with kittens and have them touching a target stick and have them run from one end of the enclosure to another. And by the end of, you know, a 5-10 minute session, it really helps them relax and they're not as frustrated with their space. And next on the list here, we have the Mackey Centers. Allie mentioned they have a binder with a prescription for different activities depending on what they feel that the cat needs. And for those there, also make sure that you fill out your progress report so that the cat behavior personnel staff can know how the cat is progressing. And then handling, we talked about this when we had our cat best practices talking about overstimulation. I encourage everyone to go back and review that video recording. It goes into more detail, but we want, again, the cat-friendly interactions, we want to give them choice and control so that it's up to the cat to decide whether they want to interact. And the A is we want to give attention to their body language. And the T, we want to think about where we touch them. Again, the head is more an area that a cat that doesn't know you well is going to accept touch. So when a cat interacts with us in a way that's predictable to the cat, again, it gives them control, it reduces their stress. So remember, when we approach the cat, pay attention to their body language. Are they coming towards us? They want to engage, or are they backing away, looking away? Then they probably don't want to engage. If they come towards us, we can hold out our finger. If they come towards us again, sniff us, then just sniffing us means they may or may not want to necessarily be touched. But if they rub against our hand, it's an indicator that most likely they would like to be petted. Again, pet their neck, their head. But pay attention, give it just a few seconds and watch their body language. Some cats, if they back away, look away, turn away, then they don't want to engage, and we don't want to have them become overstimulated. So as the last point brings out, sometimes in kennel time without engaging or without taking them out of their enclosure could be best. So you guys are all doing really great with all this. I love seeing you working with the cats, and I hope you continue.
You were talking about the touch sniff target stick, and the way that you did that was just so amazing because you're desensitizing the cat and letting the cat know that you are not in danger, but you're also not engaging his space and making his symptoms work. So you're actually like working with the cat, so like you're on the same team to make the cat understand that it's not danger. Only good things are going to happen with me, right? You're giving positive reinforcement with the lickable treat. So that's really fun. Thank you for sharing that. Also, I just want to touch a little bit about the prescription binder. So cat behaviors here we have they document cats that are fearful, cats that have stimulation issues, and they will describe different things that the cat may enjoy. So that could be some lickable treats, it could be spot play, it could be bubbles, it could be just reading, it could be the audible sounds or whatnot. And cats you can go back there and look at the cat where
Allie, it seems like we might have lost your audio. Are you speaking at the moment?
yeah. Can you hear me?
It's very faint, Allie.
How about now?
That's better. Keep doing whatever
Okay,
you're doing.
I'm really close to my computer. I'm glad my camera's off because you'd see it my nose. But anyways, so the prescription binder just helps identify what that cat needs as an individual. And then the volunteers can go ahead and follow that prescription that we do provide. And then they can fill out a progress report or just notations of what their interactions with the cat is for that day. Because ultimately, we want the cat to continue to progress and come out of being so fearful. Now, sometimes it doesn't always happen, and some fearful cats always are a little bit anxious, but we want to make sure that we have them understand that humans are not a threat to them and that they can live happily in a home, right? So next we're going to be talking about interacting or recognizing fear during an interaction. So like Victoria said, please review the kennel card. Make sure, especially if you even are working up front, make sure that you review any of the waivers that we have, because if overstimulation or fearful of new environments or people are in there, we want to make sure that we are getting all that information before we engage. Old personality notes may still apply. So a cat that was once fearful and had fear aggression issues and was swatting and hissing, any type of stimuli, something loud that falls on the ground, they could revert back to those behaviors. Escape artists and staff only, our volunteers are not going to interact with those guys because we've deemed them a little bit too high on that FAS score, right, to engage safely with. So we want to make sure that we keep that with staff only. Also, a towel draped over the front of a shoreline, that's usually a clear indication that that cat has some fearful issues, right? Or you might see a documentation like or a sign that says feel away. So that usually is used for cats that are overstimulated or cats that have fearful. So it's usually one or the two. So look at the body language when you're looking at the cat. Is the cat tucked away in its litter box? Is it tucked away in its hidey box and we're making little noises? Is he poking his head out to come and say hi? Is he avoiding eye contact? Is he tucked in or frozen? That's that. I forgot it that quick. Jesus. That's the freeze response. I just want to make sure I said it correctly. That's the freeze response that I was talking about. Is the cat responsive? Again, that's in the fear or the freeze response. Or does he appear to be shut down, appear to be fake sleeping? And remember, just like Victoria was saying, engage with the cat if the cat wants to engage with you. If you are presenting yourself, you're presenting treats, and the cat's like, I don't want nothing to do with you or what you have in your hand. We need to respect that cat's boundaries, because if we continue to engage and stick our hand in there, that's when the bite incidences happen. That's when the cat scratches our hands up. So we want to make sure we respect the cat. And also we want the cat to progress, and we want the cat to realize that we are not a threat. So if they are saying that I do not want to engage, they're holding that clear boundary, and we ignore that and enter into their space, we are causing more harm to the cat's mental well-being than we actually think. So we have to respect their boundaries. Tools that are useful. Is it safe to interact directly? If you're really unsure about it, if the cat's doing some skittish things and you're like, I don't know. Ask a staff member. Staff are happy to answer any questions that you have. We do not want anything to happen to you. We don't want anything to happen to the cat. Don't force an interaction. It will not end well. And I kind of just explained that just in the previous slide. If a cat is interested in interacting, close the room door before opening their shoreline to avoid undesirable noises. So sometimes there might be a dog walking past, especially if you're working with a cat up in our adoption floor. It can be really loud. Things dropping on the ground, especially metal things, that's very jarring, right? Even opening or closing the cage door, the shoreline door, can be jarring to the cat. So there is a way that you can do it quietly. Just lift up the lever and open the door, and then close the lever once it's open, and it shouldn't slam. So I do practice that when I do interact with any cat, because I do realize that cats are very sensitive to noises. Auditory stimulation. Use a soft, quiet voice when you're talking to them, not a stern voice. You can read a book to them or a magazine aloud. I myself, I have conversations. They're like my little therapy animals. I tell them about my day. Play relaxing sounds and music. A lot of the cats over here at Mackie, they really like the streams sounds that we play on our audio box, as well as like birds chirping and such. I always think there's birds in the lobby, but it's just in the adoption shorelines. And then also walk by treating. So you don't necessarily have to be in the cat's face and trying to get the cat to come forward. You can just say, "Hi, babe, how you doing today?" Give a little treat and keep on walking. So they're like, okay, they just walked past. They said something to me, and then I got a little treat. That's not a threat to me. So again, we're moving in the right direction. We're moving in the direction of offering positive reinforcement for the cat realizing that we're not a threat to them. Does anybody have anything to add to this before I move on to the next slide?
I
Victoria or
would like
Ella?
to just add something if I could.
Yeah.
I mentioned about like when we would add, if we see that an enclosure might need a box, we want to
Oh,
be
yes.
cautious about how we engage with putting that box in the enclosure. I
Mhm.
like to lure the cat to the other side of the portal. And I mentioned too about my retractable, I just really love this little back scratcher, right? Sometimes I'll
Okay.
use this to reach in and close that portal, also the window so the cat's in one enclosure side of the portal, then we're free to move around, set up the shelving, take care of what we want inside that portal. So it's safer and we don't have a cat trying to come out of the enclosure while we're working, setting things up, and then make sure that we open the portal up again. And with covering the gate with a towel, if we see a cat's fearful, we can just slightly open that door and slip that towel in. We don't have to have it wide open. We can just do it real quietly, so that we can make sure that we're safe and not over frightening the cat. So I wanted to add that.
Thank you so much. That was very useful.
Well, and
Um,
what I do is I usually give the cat $10 to go to a movie.
oh geez, Tom. But also with that, too, whatever interaction that you do have, if you already know it's a fearful cat and say like he does something a little bit out of the normal or whatnot, or it made you feel a little off put about the situation, definitely always mention that to a staff member or your on-site coordinator, right? Because we want to document their progress, and sometimes a cat that is fearful, right, it might not be on any type of medication yet. And if we realize that things are declining, we want to make sure that we mention it because they might have to be put on the medication. And it's not going to be a long-term thing usually. It's usually just while they're here in the shelter. When they get into a home, they could be weaned off of it, just like how dogs are. But always document your interactions. That's what my point of that is. So some key takeaways. So fear is a common condition that cats experience during their stay with Michigan Humane. So with this, I always say put yourself in the cat's shoes. Um, Being in that fearful state is usually not fun. It causes our cortisol levels to be heightened, causes our immune system to decline, and then you get sick. So it's not fun in a whole, right? Always ask questions if uncertain, or give space. Well, and give space. Shouldn't say or. Always ask questions. And if you are just not feeling it, or you're not really understanding what the signage is saying, or it's unclear, please always just ask questions. If the cat is open to interaction, use a soft voice, avoid quick movements. That's another one that we didn't really discuss in detail. And loud noises. And then also during an interaction, if you are in one of the rows, please make sure that that outer door is closed to avoid any extra noises that could happen. And also, if the cat does escape, it gives us less chances of having to chase a cat down the hallway, right? If the cat is showing signs of aggression, do not engage. That's hissing, growling, lunging at the front of the shoreline, swatting at a toy or your hand, or Victoria's back scratcher, for instance. I love that thing. We got to get more of those at the shelter. Do not engage, and then also record that experience, right? Because if that has happened and it's not already labeled as a staff only, or the cat is not on any type of medication, but we might want to reevaluate that. We need to know, right? Always read signage ahead of any interaction to keep yourself safe. Yes, this is very important, especially if the cats are up front, because a lot of times people get, or volunteers and staff get a little bit lax with the cats being on the adoption floor. There still may be a fearful cat on the adoption floor, so you want to always read the sign ahead of time, and then also pay extra attention to that body language and pay attention to what is going on inside of the cage as well. There's lots of hiding spots in there because that's a tool that we use. Is there a towel draped over the front of the kennel? That's another clear indication. Is there a sign that says spray feel away twice a day? That's another clear indication. So make sure that you're looking at the whole thing as a whole. So the cage, the inside the cage, the outside the cage, the signage, and the cat's behavior as a whole, to make sure that you remain safe, the cat remains safe, and we're continuing to allow the cat to recover from that state of fear, and we're not going backwards. Does anybody like to add anything to this? Kellen, Victoria?
Nope, sounds good.
All right. So this is the resources that I used. I also worked pretty heavily with the cat behavior team over here at Mackey. They're really, really great, these ladies. They come together for the well-being of the cats as a whole, and they've tried every single thing that they can underneath the bright blue sky to help these cats. So they're amazing. I'm gonna have that up there. And then it takes a community, guys. Without you guys, without your help, without your socialization, a lot of these cats wouldn't be able to be deemed adoptable. So you guys are doing really, really great work, and continue to engage and get as much information as you can through these virtual sessions. All right, I'm gonna open it up for questions, and I'm gonna stop to share so I could see everybody's beautiful faces. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, go ahead, Tom. Oh, there's lots of things in the chat I didn't even get to because I couldn't see it. Oh, Tom, you didn't have a question?
Okay. Yeah, the question was, do you plan on initiating the FAS at our location?
Oh, the FAS score, that hasn't been talked about. It's just used as like a skill to describe what we're seeing, but we haven't used it in our pet point system. So we're actually like actively using it for our dog behavior program, and the dogs actually get marked as as the score, right? From a 0 to, I think it's like a 5, if I'm not mistaken. And they're marked between that, but we don't have that right now as for the cats. We don't feel it's necessary to mark them in pet point from a 0 to a 5 at this point. Yeah, but we do use it as a good resource to describe their behavior because that's a really awesome chart that they have. Anybody else? Really hard to see. All right. Victoria, do you have anything to add, or Kellen, before we jump off of here?
I did have a couple of enrichments I missed.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me just show
Let it-
you. We talked about different types of textures. Remember, like soft animals, especially for kittens, they like to cuddle, and they can also safely chew on tails. Little soft animals like that.
Mhm.
Also bubbles. We can blow bubbles, not at the cat, but for them to visually see it. We can blow bubbles around. Be careful though, if you do too many, you don't want to have a slippery floor. And then something else that is fun, I think especially for fosters, because they can keep it for an individual cat, is sisal rope. You can have small pieces of sisal rope, put some knots in it. It can also be something the cats can chase. but also it's something that they can safely chew on. Of course, if we're gonna put them in an enclosure, we want to make sure it's not too long that they might, injure themselves with it, or keep an eye on it. But sisal rope is something really great. You can buy a roll of that and just cut small pieces and put knots in it. And especially like I said, for foster cats where it's, they can keep it and then you can throw it away. I don't know how well it would go through the wash at Berman Center, but I like using it with my foster cats at home. So we could always test it out, right? Put one through the wash and see what happens. But it's just, cats also, like dogs, like to destroy things. Studies show that they will interact with items that they can destroy, and the shape changes, like feathers, when they can chew on a feather, or they can chew on some crumpled up paper and make the shape change. That's what they do to an animal in the wild. And again, I can't emphasize enough using interactive toys that they can hunt and chase after. Cats give off relaxing hormones during that process of hunting after toys or hunting after those items. They're predators. So interactive toys that they can chase and watch and stalk, grab in their mouth. And I like to give them a little treat afterwards, after I'm done interactive playing with them. So there's so many different things you can do with cats. And you guys are all, I know you all, I've talked to a lot of you, and you all do really great with all your your enrichment for the animals. And it certainly helps. I spoke to a cat behavior consultant overseeing a shelter in Houston, Texas, and they said they have so much enrichment and training. Of course, they also have the space that we don't have, but they have so much enrichment and training that they literally have almost no upper respiratory infections. So that really shows that this enrichment that all you volunteers are doing with the cats and interacting with them in a way that's predictable to the cats, and you respect them when they back away and you don't engage with them. It really lowers their stress. And if any of you have had to give a fearful cat medication for upper respiratory, it's like you feel like you're just making it worse for them. So enrichment is just so wonderful, the animals. So just keep it up, and keep up how you respect their space when you interact with them. You guys are doing really good.
Thank you. One last question, if I
Okay.
may.
Go ahead, Tom.
We've got a cat that all of a sudden started eating Christmas trees. The fake Christmas trees. Is there
Mhm.
something that we can do to stop that, other than to remove the Christmas tree?
You can buy toys that have that same sound and texture in the inside of them. You can even look in the dog section, that crinkly, because that's probably why he or she's doing that.
Okay.
That's my recommendation. What about you, Victoria?
Yeah, I would say the same thing that you said, and just make it so they can't get at the tree, which I know is hard, but yeah.
Mhm.
Have them engage in
Yeah.
other things so that they're stimulated in other areas,
Okay.
like Allie said.
And
Yeah,
Sybil,
and this is also, go ahead. This is
Oh.
also an unorthodox that helps with my plants. You could put orange peels in the base of your on the base of your Christmas tree underneath your skirt. It might help repel
Okay.
it.
Thank you. And one last thing, Sybil, we want to see your cat.
We see.
Oh, we gotta see Sybil's
Pieces of
cat.
it.
Oh, the
That's
calico,
Willow.
how beautiful.
She was
What-
found in a
Hi,
window
Sybil.
well about 11 years ago. So, but
Aww.
she loves to come
So
up when I'm
cute.
at my table.
Bye.
Yeah.
Oh, he's like, I'm working
So-
with mom.
Yeah, Corinne, and I've got a foster upstairs that's coming in today for her amputation.
Oh,
Little Amelia,
okay.
and I hope I get her back. And Zinnia was mine, and she got adopted out at
Yeah, I saw that.
yeah, she's such a good cat. So I've got another 3-legged that'll be coming. Hopefully she'll be recovered by
Cool.
Christmas. But
Cool.
Fun.
Well,
yeah, so
thank
this is
you.
very helpful.